Hi, I'm Dave King, and this is Katie Cusack. You may have missed us for a few weeks. We wanted to just give you a brief update on what's going on in our lives. We've been working on this new project called The Collaborative that's will be brought to you by Proctor's. In-Depth Arts and Culture magazine will be coming out monthly starting in January of next year. And as of now, the plan is that we'll be launching our web presence in November. And we're spending the time now writing a lot of great stories, spending time with artists. It's been a real treat to do some of the things that we've done. I don't want to actually let them out of the bag yet because someone will steal our stories. But we wanted to give you a sense of what this publication is going to be and how you might get involved. And Katie, I know you've talked to a lot of people in your circle about the columnist thing. So why don't you tell people how they might reach out and what we're looking for?
So basically what we're looking for is any local creative who's involved in a genre of film, dance, visual arts, music, theater, food,
fashion,
style, technology. Basically, if you're doing any kind of creative project and you want to highlight it, you want to support it, you want people to know about it, and you want to share sort of your take, your knowledge of how you got to your position, how you've developed your projects, your events, your art. And we are taking submissions from anyone with a little writing sample of yours, and we want you to be a part of this project as much as we are, essentially. So you would have a piece in our little magazine pie and be writing about your experiences, and maybe we'd give you a theme or a topic to write about, like challenges that you've come across, or how you've gotten to work with other artists maybe in a different genre than yours in the arts community, or any sort of like financial roads you've taken. You know, the list goes on. But we do have links that are available on both of our Twitter accounts right now.
We will have more of a social media presence soon.
Yeah, we're building it up because we want it to be comprehensive for everyone, and not just like slowly leak things. And we want it to look good and present itself well. And
you should check out the Instagram page that does exist.
It does exist. It's collaborative_mag on Instagram. There's no posts on it yet, but you can find the link for the submission form in the bio there. It's also in the bio of the Alt Weekly Instagram account if you're still following that. So you can find it in a bunch of different places.
I think a lot of what we're trying to do here by bringing in columnists and creatives from the area are, we hope established folks who have been doing this for years can not only share what they think is going right in the area, but also spotlight some of the folks, younger folks, and offer guidance, give them a sense of how they made it, how they how younger folks could get involved and sort of reach their position eventually. Not everyone wants to be an artist to make money, and not everyone wants to do it as a full-time job. So we'll be offering views of how to make it work on so many different levels inside the creative process, exploring the economy of being an artist, and how to if you do want to become more professional, how to take that step. And we hope the younger folks and the folks who are just getting into the arts will be able to tell us what they need, the kind of support they want, the connections that they'd like to make, and all of that, and also perhaps bring the more established folks a sense of what's going on now, so that we're all in this connected conversation that will be ongoing as part of the collaborative. So we really value your voice. We really want to make sure that folks on all levels can access the collaborative and get their needs out there and their experiences. So that's one part of this. And we'll also be looking to bring on some freelancers and talk to folks about larger events in the area. This podcast will eventually become a lot bigger, and we'll be having a number of guests, and we hope to have feature folks who are working on projects and have their art, whatever it might be, featured, whether it's music or visual arts or film.
Spoken word.
Yep. All of that. We want to feature you and give you a chance to reach more folks. So you can email me and Katie, both right now at...
Our emails have changed. And if you're emailing us at the alt, it's not even, it doesn't exist anymore. So we can't access those email accounts. So if you have in the past, I'd say like 4 weeks, maybe send those emails again to our new emails. I'm K Cusack at proctors.org, CUSACK.
And I'm dking at proctors.org.
Yeah. So
let's
reconnect.
Please.
It's been a while.
And going forward, we'll also have a lot more structure in terms of providing you the best events and all sorts of stuff that you can get up to week. This week, we're presenting an interview with Dan Paoletti about BSide Fest, and it's really in depth, and Dan has a lot to say. He's really insightful. He's someone who's been involved in the community, the creative community for years, and has really made an interesting niche for music in the area through house shows and this
recording collectives.
And I think it speaks to a lot of what we hope to get out there, which is people who are making their creative lives work in Albany. Come hell or high water, they're making sure they're out there and as Dan says, act as enablers as well as creators. So we hope you'll check out that interview, and also if you would like to be a columnist and you don't want to fill out that form, it's okay. You can just email us again at dking at proctors.org or kcusack at proctors.org. And thank you so much for watching, and we hope you'll stay tuned over the next few weeks as things come to life.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dave King, and this is Katie Cusack, and today we're joined by respected arts leader, the hardest working man in local music, Dan Paoletti.
Wow. I'm going to get some letters about that one.
We're trying to start feuds.
That's fine.
In our inaugural.
Yes. Yeah. Welcome to
CollabCast.
That's good. The first step in collaboration is to
start a fight.
Yeah.
This is our very first podcast for the collaborative. For those who don't already know, it's going to be the your next favorite arts-focused magazine in the local community. And for our very first guest, we have Dan. And today we're going to be talking about, just to start, let's talk about the very exciting BSide Fest.
BSide Fest, yeah.
When, where, who?
When? So BSide Fest is the first attempt on the part of BSide Cassettes, which is the cassette-only tape label that me and my friends run together. Our first attempt to have a showcase local festival, or locally based festival rather, of our talent roster of acts that we've put out, past and present and future. There's actually the first show Thursday night is an EP tape release for Jacob Crowfoot, and that's one of 4 new things that will be unveiled at the fest.
Wow.
In various stages of recentness. Mm-hmm. We'll also have shirts, so I guess that's 5 really. I'm having a hard time keeping track of what it is.
Yeah.
It is very exciting, I'll give you that. So it's October 11th, 12th, and 13th in Albany, New York at 3 different houses. Ask someone with a weird haircut if you need help finding the places.
Or 80s windbreaker.
Or me. I'm on Facebook, and you can just literally direct message me, and I'm around. And I think we're showcasing somewhere around 25 artists over the course of those 3 days. Saturday's the big day. It's going from like 1 in the afternoon until, I believe the poster says ?
Yeah.
And there will be an inside and an outside stage, and we'll be featuring 12, possibly 13 acts throughout the day, along with 3 stand-up routines.
Wow.
Sprinkled throughout, and there will be arts vendors and what's the other thing? Hold on, let me refer to my notes here.
Yeah, some of you may have seen this poster around
vendors.
the
That's
city.
the word I was looking for. Vendors. And
Nice.
then I think we're going to break for Tangerines and Capri Suns at some point. Maybe do a little
Excellent.
pickup soccer or something.
Yeah.
Friday is the medium-sized night. That's the 12th. It'll be at a different house called the Orange Peel. It'll be a early starting but late going show, and nothing bad will happen. And Thursday night is at the Storied Chateau venue, which is on the 11th, and that is the regular-sized show for those of you who have regular-sized endurance. But we hope to have a great turnout because we have a lot of people coming in from out of state, out of town, and we think this is going to be a great showcase for one of our favorite and most vital and most important and hardest working segments of the local music community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Katie talked to you about this in an article she wrote for the Alt, RIP. But how did you decide to start doing tapes? I mean, I know they're more popular lately, but what were the sort of motivations?
So I was brought into the idea. I personally did not decide that, though I've definitely come around on the idea. So it was my friend and close associate Martin Pohl, who is the founder of BSide Cassettes, who started it in Queens, New York, to put out a comedy tape that he made called Tony Smith's Guide to the Internet, as narrated by Tony Smith, which is the second roster release after the first one, which was BSC 001, which is Dank Wolf. Wolves can't F word with me. Can I
That's
swear
very
on here or no?
respectful,
I should
thank
probably
you.
not.
No, go ahead.
think
Wolves
it's
Can't
okay.
Fuck With Me is the
Yeah.
title of it. And that's a math rock scrams EP thing. It's loud, it's funny, and then it's immediately followed by this just routine, sort of like stand-up bit thing that Martin did, and it's hilarious. And I did music for that, and then the third thing ended up being an apostrophe S record that I had done, and then really testing myself here. The next thing was another comedy. It was a comedy and music split. It was a Ken Burns and Iliali
Excellent.
split, so half was music by a Philly noise songwriter artist named Iliali, who we're friends with, and side A was me doing music again underneath a Ken Burns narration of random selections from, I believe it's Ken Burns' Guide to Human History or Civilization or something. It's just like random excerpts being read with the Civil War music kind of in the background.
Love that.
And then we did the first Jouska EP through a series of happy coincidences. That's kind of where I started sort of being involved in actually coordinating things by making a suggestion. And then after that, we did another Michael EP, Sands, which has just been reissued by Top Shelf Records. We're very happy about that. They kept our logo on the reissue of the tapes that they made, which is very nice. And I believe we're being shipped some at some point. And sort of from that point through the next few releases, I started taking the lead on things, and then we've reintegrated Martin into the fold. And, it's like an ever-changing organism. I just like to go to bat for it a lot, so I'm out talking about it as much as I can. And we also have Dan Matalone is involved to whatever extent. I shouldn't highlight him too much because he's not in charge. I said, looking directly into the camera. If you know Dan, we'll all have a laugh about that. And another friend and associate of ours named Judy Bell, who is great leading force in music as well with us.
Yeah, really goes to bat for diversifying the music scene, and
they are
there.
great.
Yeah,
and they do a lot of great work, and also coordinate stuff at the Rice House, which I should also clarify. That's where our Saturday event is happening.
So what was the impetus of actually having the festival? And
it's kind of just a joke, like, oh, we should do, it's like, well, okay, so I should get back and answer your question because it leads into that. So Martin started doing tapes because it's like the cheapest and most time efficient and most punk rock way to do like a DIY thing these days, because vinyl, including but not limited to 7 inches and lathe cut discs, is extremely expensive and time intensive, and it's still a cornerstone piece of how most labels operate and do merchandise. Over at 5 Kill, we have been trying to do vinyl as often as we can, but it is quite a circus for someone who doesn't have a big operating merchandise manufacturing mechanism arm or distribution arm in-house. So I was able to find a tape duplicator right over here in Glenville, New York, off of eBay, and not too far from where we are right now. And Martin had borrowed one of those same things when he was doing it down in New York City, and so it's easy. It's just like I you get a tape player from the Goodwill and just make copies, and that's really all you need to start lying to people that you operate a record label. And then so the impetus for the fest was again like, well, we might as well do this thing that other people do, which is do like a roster highlighting thing if possible. And I didn't expect it to all fall into place as easily as it did, because any random show has the potential to be a complete nightmare regardless of how much planning ahead you do or praying to the pantheon of DIY gods that things work correctly.
Fall together.
Right.
Who is your DIY god of choice normally? Who do you like to pray to make sure the show comes?
Wow. What a question.
Yeah.
Hey, we went there. We got to follow up.
That's true. I brought it up. Who's my DIY god? Probably just the Minutemen as a group.
Solid answer.
Hardworking folks there, who have not shed that aspect of their lives for the most part as well. Continue to jam Econo.
Yeah. And there are a lot of artists here who are sort of branches off of groups who you guys have released, like Greens, or like people that you associate with, like Pink Noise, etc. How has that grown? Is that just from collaborating with the artists that you have on your roster, or like getting to know people who are involved in B-side? Like, how does that?
I think new artists will emerge simply by presenting people with opportunities to see high quality creative work in their local environment. And I think that the house show community around in Albany and Troy, and there's some going on in Schenectady. I haven't made it out here yet, but that's I don't hear about it, so people just need to, you know what I mean? It's like you don't hear about everything that's going on, but the more you do it, the more it becomes a thing that has its own sort of notoriety. And I think just through sheer exposure and the classic idea of like, if you do it, then you demonstrate that it can be done, and then you actively encourage other people to also do those things. It just creates sort of a groundswell of forward creative movement that people can ride that wave. So I don't think it's, I wish that we had more people that I didn't already know from other bands, because that would mean we were doing a better job at outreach, or at diversifying, or at like at least getting audiences into the environment that hadn't been there before. Or at least that I would be doing a better A&R job as someone who's supposed to be paying attention to different bands, other than the ones that I already know through people. But the music community has picked up over the last few years. We had a venue exodus situation kind of happen in the turn of the last 2 decades, late 2000s, early 2010s. That chapter ended with Valentine's closing, and the torch was borne by a bunch of hardy, determined individuals, more determined than me, because I kind of gave up and was like, oh, nothing's going on. All right, so much for that. But other people continued to book shows at their homes and take all their labor and time and invest that in trying to build this thing. Specifically, I should mention the folks at Treehouse through those years, and the folks at World Citizen Party House after that. Those two really, I think, carried the flame through the darkness for what is now. I mean, there's like, new house places starting up like every month, and everybody feels like, oh, I can do this too, and that's kind of like the idea behind it.
So as part of the collaborative, I mean, one of the things that we really want to focus on is the sort of environment the local environment for creatives. And obviously, you went to school for the stuff you do in the area, and obviously, despite some of the challenges with venues, you stayed and you've been invested. So I'm wondering, first, what made you become so invested in the area, and second, what could make it better?
So I have actually lived most of my life in this area. I grew up in Del Mar, moving around different houses in Del Mar through high school. Went to NYU briefly, came back, lived in Connecticut briefly, came back, and I've been here since then. So for between 5 and 6 years, I've been back. And my, biggest embarrassment is that I've been trying to solve this problem for that my entire life has been spent being sort of I'm upset about this area. It's not good. And then second guessing myself and saying, well, why don't I think it's good? And it's just been a slow process of me banging my head against the wall trying to figure out why it makes sense or doesn't make sense. And I think again, it's like I just said, it's because someone demonstrated that it was possible. I then got reinterested in it. I just happened to meet a friend of mine named Scoops Stardaris, who used to live and run sound at the World Citizen House that I mentioned, and he was my teacher briefly for a semester. And he was like, "Yeah, we do shows in my house sometime. You should come through." And I did, and I was impressed, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I called Dan immediately because I was like, "You got to come to this next thing. It's real. This stuff is happening." Because it's a fun pastime among Albany creative intelligentsia wastoid people who don't have anything already going on to kind of get brunch and be like, "What's wrong?" And I think there's what's wrong. I'll get to that, but because I have thoughts and feelings. But the main thing I think is that there is it's like a secret ore deposit underneath the mountain, right? There's all this creative stuff going on. There's an unfair amount of high quality musical artists, whether that be in spoken word or slam poetry, and the rap and hip hop scene, R&B, world music, folk music, classical music, the DIY rock stuff, the more mainstream pop-oriented rock stuff. The community around the College of St. Rose music industry department, which is what you just mentioned, that's where I graduated from in May, is extremely important because it's a bunch of directionless kids who are extremely talented and want to do things with no definite they're not tainted. They all come in from other places, and they're not they don't have that Capital Region bitterness of weird embarrassment. Well, we're too close to everywhere else to really do our own thing, so we might as well not do anything. And so they're all sort of they just do things naturally if you guide them towards different things, and they're all extremely talented and versatile and diverse in their approach, and they bring new ideas to the table that wouldn't necessarily organically grow here. And I think that's true of all the different college communities around here. It's astounding if you look at the area demographically in terms of it's got an enormous higher education only population through the semester's time of the year. And yet this is not the same sort of happening music community thing, or at least that's not one of the highlights that we lead with when we talk about our creative area, as you might find in somewhere like Athens or State College PA has just shows constantly, any number of places in America. I went on a road trip over the summer, and it's you just see rock clubs wherever you go. I saw more rock clubs in stupid out of the way suburbs of places than I've seen here in years, which is frustrating, but also empowering, because it's it can be done. It's obviously not an unprecedented thing to do. It's a little inconvenient to have to pick yourself up out of that dead period, but it's possible, and it's something that can be fruitful. I think the issue really is that people don't know what's going on because there is, for some reason, some sort of hitch. I don't know. I've always thought, there's just poor communication methods around here. I don't know what the origin of that is. I can't pinpoint it. I can't give you a cause. I can just sort of diagnose that symptom, but I really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know something that people like to talk about is like that in relation to like us being in the middle of a bunch of places where things are happening, people leave, and then it seems like recently they're coming back a lot more often, and they're bringing artists with them, which is something that's really cool that's happening right now. And that's a part of the fest with the host, like was hosted by the city of Philadelphia, which is cool. But I think that's an interesting change that's happened in the like Exodus issue.
Yeah, I mean, this area does suffer from a severe talent and brain drain, if you want to use that, my favorite economics term. The only one I remember.
I mean, one of the things that I found interesting in the last few years, and since being involved in the alt, and it's the idea that there are a lot of folks coming in for, say, the video game industry, or they're coming in for the tech industry, and but a lot of them are creatives or artists or musicians, or they bring their family who do all this stuff, and they're looking for it. And it feels to me like there's more opportunity now of folks who want to find it than maybe there was the early 2000s.
No, I agree. I've seen a lot more weirdos walking around. Summer's always great because you see every year there's a slight uptick in like, they might see you out at a thing, someone you've never seen before, who's got a weird haircut, like I mentioned, which is the clearest indicator.
But it is true that, obviously going to even as close as Northampton, which, probably has, I mean, obviously they have a lot of colleges, but the concentration of colleges here is probably surpasses that area in some ways. But they have so much going on, and it's year round. Like something like the Iron Horse music group, that all the venues are coordinated and things like that. But it is sort of amazing with the amount of younger kids coming through constantly that there isn't more of a...
I think that brings up a good point, though, which is that there's been a lot of change and reconsolidation in the music industry in general over the last 20 years in light of, I don't need to read the script back about file sharing and streaming and, the buying up of all the indie labels. And so there's like really like we exist in this sort of strange strata of people who decided to buck all that stuff and start a small record label to put out weird music for little to no cost to ourselves or the artists anyway.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense because we have no access to all those other things, which is why, especially like with the 5Co label that I'm on the board of, we try to really double down on the not-for-profit approach of it, because it's like, I don't know why we're all so infected with this idea of like we need to support the arts and I don't know. It seems like a thing that people like. I like it a lot deep inside my soul. I like throw money in a fire pit to try and help people do that kind of thing with their lives. I'm an enabler, which is the worst person in the addiction cycle. But it's what you're saying about like the Albany didn't have anything going on during that period of reconsolidating, reconstruction, whatever you might want to call it. And so we kind of have this interesting, just barren landscape environment from which to, but with a lot of people moving in because of different industry and economy shifts that have been going on in the area at large. And I always try to mention those other industries that are causing a population increase, especially among creative-minded individuals, like the video game industry, great example. Some film stuff that goes on up here, great example. And I think that I love to call it like a sandbox environment, where it's like we may be completely stupid for just starting something that isn't really designed to make any money, but we also might end up being hailed as innovative super geniuses for coming up with something new, and this could be the new Seattle, and then it might be worth it at that point. But either way, you get to promote some cool music and hang out with interesting people that are your friends and be ridiculous, and that's really the American dream, I think.
Yeah.
Hang out and be stupid.
And I feel like even with putting out tapes, it's a whole other form of an art in itself, like in terms of like designing it and like the little booklets.
Yes,
and,
I do have
zines
this extremely niche.
It's like a
art direction skill
Right.
now that no one needs.
Hey
Yeah.
man, a lot of the major labels are now putting out cassettes.
Right, which scares me because I don't want our manufacturing costs driven up by
Oh
that,
jeez, yeah.
which they probably inevitably will, which is unfortunate. It's, the music industry since the 90s has been constantly scouting at those sort of low underground level to see like what people are doing outside of their fence, and they continually reappropriate that for their
Yeah,
own
they
purposes
can
and
snatch
sell
it
it back to
back.
people who aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
I want Albany to be a place that doesn't get stuff sold back to it. I want it to be a place that takes pride in its own creative landscape, and I think that we have a weird psychological hitch against doing that. I think we have this weird self-hating Midwestern thing, but we're not even polite to each other. So we're just kind of like the Midwest without the manners, or like a college town without any art kids. Like,
Yeah.
just like, and everyone hates everything, but like they still hang out and do stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like what
Yeah.
the issue is.
We love to hate it here.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like really.
yeah. That's why it's Philadelphia too. It's like anyone else comes and attacks us, we're like, get out of here.
Yeah, but we aren't at that like Philly level of like
Sure we are.
everyone.
No, Philly's over. Philly's, it's like Brooklyn 2009.
Right.
It happened already. Everyone's flooding in there.
Yeah.
It's saturated. A lot of good music coming out of there. In fact, there's so much good
Yeah.
music that this small cassette tape label out of Albany, New York actually has to
Is
release
bringing them in.
2% of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's part of the longer term strategy to get everybody to come here.
Right.
If everyone who owns all those warehouse buildings downtown would stop building condos in them and just maybe rent them out for a reasonable cost to people who might want to live here for not that much money because they can't even do work in their field
Mhm.
because the economy isn't here to support that kind of thing, because you think that all artists have to just suffer unequivocally
Yeah.
for their work, and that's what makes it good, because you have this weird ingrained Protestant self-hating thing that guides the American consciousness. That would be great if you did that, if you just lowered the rent overall in general, because that's one of the biggest
It's
things we have going for
really-
us right now, is that it's not
Yeah.
it out of the realm of possibility to rent a
Yeah.
2-bedroom apartment.
The affordability thing is what could get us a
Right.
lot more growth from people escaping the city because there's no
Right.
transit and you can't afford to live there. But
If we implemented, region-wide rent control, first of all, everything should just be one city. I think we should
I
cut this
agree.
crap with everyone's different in it. You got to pay 60 cents to drive from Albany to here for some reason, and on the way back.
Yeah.
Just cut the crap. Troy's part of Albany, Bonanza's part of Albany, Latham's part of Albany. Bring everybody in. It's all just
Jeez.
big Albany.
This is what's gonna start the fight.
Then
Yes.
whatever, fine. See, that's you're not wrong either, and that's dumb. Glens Falls and South Glens Falls are the same place. No one cares. They're all part of Saratoga.
That's
Schenectady,
true.
Scotia, Glenville, and whatever the other one is are all the same thing.
Niskayuna.
Niskayuna, right? Yeah, that's all just I don't.
But I mean,
Transportation infrastructure and region-wide
Yeah.
rent control as a result
people
of
can get
consolidating as
around
one urban environment. Boom.
Well, you
Yeah.
get to an interesting point clearly about rents and all these luxury apartments and condos being built, and it's funny because in New York City, obviously the journalists are more tuned in to affordability. Not that means there's more built, but here it seems like people write and sort of celebrate these developers as though they're the godsend. And when
Yeah.
they say, "Oh, we need to create these luxury apartments because
Like,
it's the
who
only
can
way
live
we'll make
there?
money," but yeah,
It's the same problem I just mentioned with the music industry self-perception thing. It's that we're taking these ideas that other places have implemented that aren't working for them, and we're going, yes, thank God. Like when let's talk about Stax Espresso, one of the most wonderful examples of a business bucking against this sort of like cultural malaise situation that we all know and hate. Stax started just two guys, some money, and a will to spread the love of fine coffee. And that's like, it's you can kind of split this decade into like pre-Stax and post-Stax, at least as Albany is concerned.
Wow.
I hope y'all get one eventually, I'm sure.
Oh, we are. It's scheduled.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. I mean, I live in Albany, so I already have one. But
Right.
But being here, yeah, apparently the
Great.
Stax is on the way.
So that'll be Stax 5, I think,
Right.
and they've rapidly expanded over the last 9 months, which is great because they're doing really well, because they were just like, oh, look, a market niche. There's no there's coffee shops, but there's no coffee shop. If you ever go on tour, you go from city to city or whatever, it's unfair how many nice, you can sit down and hang out kind of coffee shops there are. And this is not against any other coffee shop, save for one particular coffee shop that will go unnamed. But the point being that they just did it, and then everyone was like, oh good, here's this, and what more people's attitude needs to be is the Stacks guys' attitude of being like, we're just gonna do it. And then it's there, and then everyone is like, oh thank goodness, it's been delivered from from the heavens, that it's this thing that if I go down to Manhattan, there's 4 dozen of these in a 3-block radius.
I mean, I think they and Superior Merchant both take their craft seriously in a way that I think some people are afraid to take anything seriously in Albany.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
shows are a great way to learn about that, because you see we have one of the weirdest audience sample pools in the world. It's nobody dances, nobody. I mean, there's certain bands that really bring their ruckus, but you go to most shows and it's just a bunch of people kind of looking at each other with that timid are we allowed to have fun right now? What do we do?
Yeah.
I haven't been to a rock concert in so long. What is this? It's I don't know. Now it's starting to sound bitter. I'm trying to encourage everybody.
That is notoriously the setting for New York City as well. So maybe it's a New York thing.
If you want. I mean, New York is just there's a lot of great, hardworking people that live there that go completely unrecognized and underrepresented in their political process and in their cultural projection of what they are to the rest of the world, and I think that's a sham. Specifically, of course, I'm talking about minorities and people of color and people of foreign origin who live and work in the kitchens and janitorial staff and on the public transportation, and making that city really function the way that it does. And then there's just but then what it is outwardly is just this playground for people to go and pee in public and light stuff on fire, and but they have coffee shops and they have poke bowl bars, and they have artisanal brunch things and artisanal ramen.
Yeah, that's
cereal bars.
Yeah. Do we want that here? My worry is that people who can facilitate those things because they have a certain amount of money are just going to be like, well, yeah, of course we want those things here because I want them here, and I'm in charge and you're not. And exactly, and it's been done before. And we will just bumble through another 3 decades of the locusts will come in and spend all their money and move away when that economy collapses, and we'll be left with the same thing and no sort of sense of civic pride
or personality at all.
Albany has a lot of personality. I think that's a misperception. I think that we don't see it because we're in the middle of it. But I think that we really own that, that phrase, keep Albany boring.
Right.
First of all, it's not original, it's derivative, so that's funny.
Yeah.
And then it's also the negation twist on the original phrase. It's not a self-pride thing. It's we get it. Kind of thing.
That's why we all think it's funny. It's
right, exactly. It's the
joke.
Perfect turn of phrase to describe the mentality around here. And I think that's how everybody basically feels about it. My mission in the arts world in general, in the music world more specifically around here, is to get more people to recognize that they and we collectively do have our own sort of individual spirit that maybe is inside of you and in your inner thoughts, but that you don't know how to articulate quite specifically, and that I want to give people the opportunity to recognize that it's there and that they can articulate it and that they can go do their own thing and that they should and that it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to a happier place before we end. The festival is obviously no. We went there with you. The festival is obviously a celebration of a lot of what has been going right in Albany for a while now. How do you suggest someone who doesn't have, say, the whole 3 days to devote, take part, and get the best sort of intersection
the gist of it?
Yeah.
just start talking to people
Well, I mean, for the festival.
for the festival
Yeah.
specifically.
Should they come for
Yeah,
a day?
yeah.
Pop in?
You can come for any of those days at a time. We will also, the prices we have on the poster are suggested guidelines. Please pay them if you can, so that we can give the artists money, not ourselves.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll work with you on price. There's a 3-day pass price available if you want to just kind of come and go as you please throughout that time. It's really open-ended. It's Martin said online somewhere, and I want to repeat it here, that we're about bringing people in, not about shutting them out. So it's very open-ended. If you want to come, volunteer, help us like build the second stage or something, or hang posters or whatever it might be, and you find us, just drop us a line and let us know. And that's another way to like get involved without necessarily being there specifically. We will do like whatever it is in our power to make sure it runs smoothly, as long as we get left alone.
And
Right.
what's what's next on the schedule for B-side release wise? Do you have anything lined up?
Yes, we do have a slate. So I don't think I'm going to be able to say them in order.
Understood.
Because I don't have my magic notebook of things with me. So we've just recently announced our first comic book that was co-authored by our founder, Martin Pohl, and a friend of his, Angela Juarez. They were working on it all summer, and we are releasing that as one of our catalog things. Again, I mentioned the Jacob Crowfoot EP release. Jacob is a Philadelphia expat who is also the guitarist in Another Michael, and he's releasing his, I think, second or third EP with us now, and it's great, and it's called Shorts, and that's because all the songs are short, and the whole thing is short, and it's like, if you have no attention span, or even if you do, you might enjoy squeezing it into your busy listening schedule. I think it's great. That's why I'm putting it out on tape. We are releasing the Lone Phone Booth EP,
I
which
really like that one.
it's a great little slice of musical pie.
It is.
I like it too. It is out on their Bandcamp already. However, we are making a limited run of 20 tapes. Each of them comes with a hand-drawn illustration by Grace Annunziato, the centerpiece of Lone Phone Booth. The booth themselves.
Exciting.
What else is going on? I feel like so we did a compilation release last year that's called Juicy Fruit Presents the 21 Best Songs in Musical History, or whatever the number is, where we did a covers compilation and left it kind of open-ended and let people pick their favorite songs from movies. And so we got a bunch of covers. There's like however many there are, and the tape itself is like an hour and 10 minutes long or something. And so we're releasing that on cassette finally, and the proceeds for that go to Estados por Puerto Rico, which still needs our help, unfortunately. So we like to rise up and talk about those issues and raise what little money we can, if we can, when we can. And also, we are then later in the year co-releasing the Blue Ranger LP, which is called Saving a Beauty. It's out on 10/26, which is October. Sorry about my dyscalculia there. It's out on October 26th via 5 Kill Records. There will also be vinyl at some point, so technically it's our first vinyl release, and Martin is mad at me for not putting the logo on the records themselves, but that's okay. So we're doing the tapes for that release. That'll be out concordant with the release of the record, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan. And then later in the year, we'll be releasing a record from a Philadelphia artist named Big Nick, who is a guitarist with a bunch of different bands, including Horse Cops, Blue Smiley. He's currently playing in They Are Gutting a Body of Water, and they will also be on the Friday gig playing as their solo project and in Tagabo as well. So we have a busy release roster upcoming.
Very cool.
And we're really excited about all of it, and we hope that you are too.
Well, thank you for coming and
thanks
spending
for having
some
me.
time.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, I can't wait to check some of this out. Sounds like it's gonna be a crazy weekend.
Hopefully, it'll be agreeable, and no one will get mad or hurt.
Yeah.